Hello everyone, this is Giraffe. Today we are going to continue talk about the 7 wonders of the ancient world. The Temple of Artemis at Ephesus. This temple was located in the ancient, exceptionally wealthy city-state of Ephesus, which is in present-day Turkey. The Temple of Artemis at Ephesus does have ruins that remain today. If you visit, you can see huge scattered stones on the ground, along with a single standing column, though this column was reconstructed later. Originally, all the pillars lay fallen, but some fragments were later stacked to form this column. The temple originally looked like this. Constructed entirely of pure white marble, it measured 137 meters in length, 69 meters in width, and 19 meters in height, with over 126 towering marble columns, creating a breathtaking forest of pillars. The lintels and beams were incredibly heavy, weighing between 5 to 10 tons each, and were fitted together so precisely that there were no visible gaps. But it wasn't just about size. The interior of the temple was adorned with exquisite carvings. The most famous feature was its unique carved column bases, each decorated with life-size reliefs of gods and mythological figures. Artemis was the ancient Greek goddess of the moon and the hunt, the twin sister of Apollo, the sun god. The United States used to launch the Artemis program, a plan to return to the moon. The 1916 moon missions were called the Apollo program, so this time it's named after his twin sister, Artemis. Hence, the Artemis program for the new lunar missions. So how did the Temple of Artemis come to be? Legend says that long ago, there was already a temple to Artemis at this site, built by the Amazons, the tribe of warrior women from ancient mythology. In Greek mythology, the Amazons were a tribe of fierce female warriors who lived near the Black Sea. They were known for their exceptional combat skills. The tribe consisted entirely of women, no men. However, they would occasionally seek out men to reproduce. If a male child was born, he was killed. Only girls were raised and trained as warriors, ensuring the tribe remained entirely female. Then, what's the connection with the Amazon River? There is a slight connection. Actually, the Amazons came first, and later the Amazon River in South America was named after them. How did the South America get its name? Originally, the region was part of the empires like the Inca, but it didn't have a specific name. When Spanish conquistadors arrived in South America, they encountered vast rainforests. While exploring, they came across a tribe of female warriors. Their first thought was Amazons. From then on, the region was called the Amazon. So there is a connection, though not a direct one. But were there really no male infants in the South American tribes? No, they did have male children. It was different from the Greek myth. Now back to the Greek Amazons. They worshipped the goddess Artemis because she was the goddess of the hunt, and they were hunters themselves. So according to myth, a temple of Artemis existed at this site since ancient times. When the mythological era ended, the temple remained. However, around 2,007 years ago, a great flood swept through the area and destroyed the temple. At the time, the temple was located in the kingdom of Lydia, in what is now northwestern Turkey. The kingdom of Lydia was famously extremely wealthy, one of the richest kingdoms in Europe at the time. It is also the earliest known civilization to use minted coins, introducing gold and silver currency in China during the late Shang dynasty. Metal currency was used, but it was mostly copper coins, not precious metals. Lydia was the first to use gold and silver as money. Even today, gold and silver coins can be excavated from Lydia's ruins. The king of Lydia was perhaps the richest person in the world at the time. King Croesus. In English-speaking countries, there is a saying as rich as Croesus, meaning extremely wealthy. His name became synonymous with riches. Why was Lydia so rich? The kingdom had a river flowing through it, surrounded by gold and silver mines. They invented gold panning techniques, constantly extracting gold from the river, which made them immensely wealthy. Not only did they invent gold panning, but the term touchstone also originated from Lydia. They used a black stone to test the purity of gold. A line drawn on it would indicate whether the gold was pure. This stone was called a touchstone. So, it's an incredibly prosperous and advanced civilization. Upon seeing the temple destroyed, the wealthy king thought, "This won't do. We must rebuild it, bigger and more magnificent, without sparing any expense." He then hired the finest architects from ancient Greece to undertake the reconstruction. Thus, around 550 BCE, work began on the new temple of Artemis. So, the white marble temple of Artemis I described earlier was different from the earlier Amazonian temple. The original appearance remains unknown. Who did Croesus hire to build this temple of Artemis? It was the renowned architect Ctesiphon. However, Ctesiphon died before completing the temple. His son, Metagenes, took over but likely also passed away before finishing it. Other designers stepped in to finally complete the project. Historical records vary on how long the construction took. Some say as little as 20 years, others as long as 120 years. The commonly accepted estimate today is around 50 years. Among the many architects involved was Scopas, who also contributed to another of the seven wonders. This means that two of the seven wonders were worked on by the same designer, a point we will return to later. After 50 years of construction, the temple stood for over 100 years until a madman emerged. Desiring to leave his mark on history, he deliberately set fire to the temple and burned it down, simply out of madness. After the fire, the local people funded the construction themselves, rebuilding the temple from scratch. It was this rebuilt version that was later recorded in the book as the Temple of Artemis. So it wasn't the original, not even the second version. Exactly, it was the later reconstruction. And it was this last version that became one of the seven wonders, or seven must-see sites. The temple was not only architecturally stunning, but also housed countless exquisite artwork, gold and silver artifacts, and precious objects. Many of these were lost in the fire. After standing for another 600 years, in 260 CE, the Goths invaded the region, plundering and destroying the temple once more, leaving behind only scattered stones, the ruins we see today. Alright, next, the mausoleum at Halicarnassus. The mausoleum at Halicarnassus was a massive tomb in the ancient Greek city of Halicarnassus, also within present-day Turkey. It seems like the author of the Seven Wonders only traveled around Turkey. Today the ruins look roughly like this. Even in its reconstructed form, it was immense, situated on a hill and standing about 14 stories tall. The base measured 32 by 38 meters, making it the largest above-ground tomb in the Western world at the time, aside from the pyramids. The tomb was built for a local governor named Mausolus and his wife, who was also his sister, Artemisia II. Although Mausolus was a governor appointed by the Persian Empire, he enjoyed a high degree of autonomy, essentially acting as a local king with his own army. Mausolus began designing and constructing the tomb during his lifetime. Around 300 BCE, he hired the renowned Greek architect and sculptor Scopas to build it. Scopas was the same architect who had earlier participated in designing and constructing the Temple of Artemis at Ephesus. At that time, he wasn't famous yet, but after the temple was completed, his reputation soared, leading to his commission for this tomb. This explains why the tomb's design resembles a temple. The mausoleum actually blended multiple architectural styles. It featured temple-like columns, reminiscent of the Temple of Artemis, a pyramid-like roof, and bronze statues, essentially incorporating elements from several of the wonders. The sarcophagi were placed above ground within the base structure, rather than buried underground. While above ground, as a governor of the Persian Empire, Mausolus followed Persian tomb traditions, though his tomb was far grander and larger, twice the size of the Persian king's tomb, and much more luxurious. At the very top of the structure stood a statue of Mausolus and his wife, riding a 4-horse chariot. The base alone used 12,000 tons of stone, and the walls were adorned with intricate carvings and statues of warriors guarding the tomb. Mausolus died before the tomb was completed. Artemisia II took over the kingdom and continued the construction. 2 years later, she also passed away, and the tomb remained unfinished. Eventually, their younger brother took charge and completed it, placing the couple inside. The entire construction took 27 years. For over 1,000 years, the tomb remained largely intact. Then, in 1402, a major earthquake struck the region, causing the structure to collapse. Over the centuries, weathering and minor earthquakes had weakened it, but the final quake brought it down completely. After the collapse, the scattered stones were reused by locals to rebuild their homes and the port. When foreign invaders arrived, they broke into the tomb. According to accounts, the invaders intended to loot it, but by the next day, everything inside had already been taken by others. Thus, the whereabouts of the treasures and even the remains of Mausolus and Artemisia II remain unknown. The tomb stood for over 1,700 years. Locals held it in high regard. Despite frequent wars in the region, the tomb was left untouched. It was only after its collapse that people began repurposing its stones. Due to its grandeur, the name mausoleum, derived from Mausolus, became synonymous with large, elaborate tombs in the Western world. One of the most famous buildings inspired by it is the House of the Temple, the headquarters of the Freemasons in Washington, D.C. In front of this building stand 2 sphinx-like statues. Since Freemasonry originated from stonemason guilds, these statues hint at their ancient origins, suggesting a connection to the era of the Sphinx and possibly even megalithic civilization. Alright, next, the Colossus of Rhodes. The Colossus of Rhodes was a massive bronze statue of the sun god Helios, standing at the entrance of the harbor on the Greek island of Rhodes. The statue itself was 33 meters tall, placed atop 2 pedestals, each 15 meters high. At 33 meters, it was roughly the height of a 10-story building, and including the pedestals, it reached about 15 stories high. Constructed around 280 BCE, it was the largest bronze statue in the world at the time, taking 12 years to complete. For comparison, the largest statue today is the Zhongyuan Buddha in Henan, China, standing 108 meters tall on a 20-meter lotus pedestal with a total height of 128 meters. It was completed in 2008. The Colossus was built by the people of Rhodes themselves to commemorate their victory against foreign invaders, using the enemy's weapons and armor to cast the bronze. Helios was their guardian deity, so they erected the statue in his honor. Rhodes was also the most advanced center for mechanical engineering and bronze casting at the time. Casting statues was their specialty. They regularly exported smaller statues to places like Italy. Building the largest statue was a way to showcase their craftsmanship and to attract attention. There is a legend that the statue contained mechanical devices. Its hand could move, and it held molten metal in its right hand to bore on invading ships, though this is likely mythical. The challenge of the colossals differed from that of the statue of Zeus. While Zeus was seated and focused on artistic detail, the colossals had to stand upright on two legs, a far more difficult engineering feat. What about the standing statue of Athena? Athena's statue was indoors and could be supported by pillars, but the colossals stood freely in an open harbor. It's hard to imagine how such a tall statue could remain stable. Ultimately, it didn't withstand the test of time, likely due to structural stress from wind, weather, and thermal expansion of the bronze. The colossals stood for 54 years before a major earthquake in 226 BCE caused it to collapse at the knees. The broken pieces lay scattered around the harbor for centuries. The people of Rhodes considered rebuilding it, but consulted a high priest who warned that reconstruction would bring disaster. So the fragments were left untouched for 800 years, becoming a famous tourist attraction. Many writers and travelers visited, marveling at the colossal ruins. Some records mention that a single finger was larger than a human. After 800 years, the statue disappeared entirely when Arab invaders captured Rhodes and melted down the bronze to make weapons and coins. Thus, along with the Hanging Garden of Babylon, the colossals of Rhodes is another wonder with no physical remains today. A famous modern structure inspired by the colossals is the Statue of Liberty in the United States. The Statue of Liberty was not built by Americans but given by France over a century ago to commemorate the centennial of American independence. It stands 46 meters tall, roughly the same height as the colossals, including its pedestal. The Statue of Liberty stands with legs together, unlike some artistic depictions of the colossals with legs apart, which would have been structurally unstable. Engineers likely learned from the colossals collapse, reinforcing the Statue of Liberty with a steel framework to withstand weathering and wind. As a side note, the tallest statue in the world today is the Statue of Unity in India, completed in 2018 to commemorate Patel, a leader of India's independence movement and its first deputy prime minister. It dwarfs both the colossals and the Statue of Liberty in scale. Alright, the last of the seven wonders, the youngest one, though still dating back over 2,000 years, is the Lighthouse of Alexandria, the world's first skyscraper, built around 2,200 years ago. Before this, there were no tall buildings. How high was this lighthouse? Slightly shorter than the pyramids. Historical records vary on its exact height, but the average estimate is around 130 meters, while the pyramids stand at over 140 meters. It was the third tallest structure in the world at the time, after the Great Pyramid of Giza and the Pyramid of Khafre. By day, it looked like this, by night, like this, a true lighthouse. At 130 meters, it was equivalent to a 40-story building, constructed in ancient times. It is said that The light from this lighthouse could be seen from 50 miles away. Was it a candlelight? No, and this is a crucial question. How could it be so bright? At that time, there was no electricity. Some say it was the fire burning at the top, with the bronze mirror reflecting the light outward, but that seems unlikely to produce such brightness. Another puzzling aspect is the view. Alexandria is in Egypt, a region with very few trees, just as one of the mysteries of the pyramids is how massive stones were transported without sufficient timber. The same question applies here. What was burned to keep the light shining? Egypt had no forest, no abundant fuel, and no petroleum. Yet the lighthouse is said to have operated for 1,500 years. Even if not continuously, it would have required centuries of fuel. What was burned? This is a major unsolved question. Was it lit all the time? Not during the day, but at night. It likely remained lit. In theory, it needed to be lit continuously. Otherwise, ships would be in danger. What was the purpose of lighthouse? First, to guide ships. Ancient Egypt was largely flat with few landmarks. From the sea, it was hard to spot the city of Alexandria. The lighthouse's light served as a beacon. Second, the lighthouse was built on Pharos Island, across from the harbor, hence its other name, the Pharos Lighthouse. The waters around the island were filled with hidden reefs, so the light warned ships to keep their distance. Thus, it had to remain lit. Otherwise, navigation would be hazardous. So, its practical importance is immense. Absolutely. But keeping it lit required a constant fuel supply. Another challenge: how was fuel transported 40 stories up? It's believed the lighthouse had a spiral ramp inside, where donkeys carried fuel up in a continuous loop. Humans couldn't manage such a task. It required too much fuel, and the donkeys had to keep climbing non-stop. After standing for 1,500 years, the lighthouse was destroyed by two major earthquakes in 1303 and 1323. After it collapsed, its base remained, and a fortress called the Citadel of Thebes was built on top. The rest of the structure fell into the sea. Remains of the lighthouse have been found underwater, so physical evidence of it exists. From these ruins, we can tell the lighthouse was unimaginably massive. A modern structure inspired by it is the George Washington Masonic National Memorial in Washington, D.C., also built by the Freemasons. The reason these 7 are called wonders is primarily because each was unprecedented and the largest of its kind in the world at the time. How they were built remains uncertain. Our current understanding is based on modern speculation. Future archaeological discoveries or more detailed historical records may reveal completely different methods. Beyond the mysteries of construction, there's an even more fundamental puzzle. Why did the designers and builders of these wonders dare to undertake such projects? Today, if we want to build something unprecedented, we rely on computer simulations to verify feasibility before breaking ground. Back then, no such simulation tools existed. They had to rely purely on vision and intuition for such massive, costly, and labor-intensive projects to be successfully built on the first attempt and to stand for thousands of years without collapsing. It's truly astonishing which modern structure dares to claim it will stand for a millennium. This is something almost incomprehensible to architects today. What gives them such confidence and courage remains a mystery. It seems that despite lacking advanced equipment and calculations, they proceeded without hesitation and got it exactly right. Another interesting point, aside from the statue of Zeus, the other 6 wonders are closely tied to stonemasonry, suggesting possible connections to organizations like the Freemasons. There's also an intriguing pattern. 6 of the 7 wonders were built within a relatively close time frame. Except for the pyramids, the other 6 were constructed within a span of about 300 to 400 years. The pyramids, however, are much older, 4,600 years old, compared to the others at around 2,600 years old. That's a 2,000-year gap. Even in ancient times, the pyramids were seen as relics of a distant past. Yet, despite being the oldest, the pyramids are the most challenging to build and are the only ones still standing today. A truly incredible feat. Among all the 7 wonders, and even among all known stone structures on Earth, the pyramids are the most precise in terms of scale, alignment, and construction accuracy. Their margins of error in orientation, leveling, and overall construction are so small, they are negligible, practically non-existent. For a structure to maintain such precision over 4,000 years is almost incomprehensible. Most modern buildings can't even achieve the pyramid's level of accuracy. Some aren't even perfectly level. A ball might roll on the floor. The pyramids don't have that problem. So, compared to the pyramids, the other wonders seem to pale in significance. The other 6 wonders live in the shadow of the pyramids. When compared, their construction challenges seem less monumental, though in reality, each was an extraordinary achievement. It's just that the pyramids are on a completely different level, almost imaginable in their skill and precision. Alright, that covered 6 of the 7 wonders of the world. We didn't discuss too much about the pyramids today. We will cover them in detail in a future episode. Leave your thoughts to comments. See you next time.